Let's look at human threats to ecosystems. One of the first common threats to ecosystems that is not always human related, but lately it's definitely been the driving force, and that is extinction. Extinction occurs when plants and animals that were on Earth are no longer present due to either just the environment or physical changes to the Earth. And this is different than the term extirpation. So if something is extirpated, that means that it's only been extinct in a certain area. I think this is extirpated, but wasn't totally wiped off the face of the earth. For example, bison were extirpated, which means that they were locally extinct, but they were present in other parts of the world. And so we still have bison today. In fact, we're regrowing the population. But something that's been totally extinct means we can never get it back, like the dinosaurs. So what causes extinction? Habitat loss, maybe a temperature change, pollution, overharvesting of plants and animals, and maybe the introduction of something called a non-native species. So habitat loss, examples are when we build cities and roads, or we log for trees or fires. And so temperature change, fuels burned from cars and factories are causing a change in the atmosphere, and we're getting global warming, and that can cause extinction of species if they can't adapt to the new environment. Pollution, oil spills, for example, the BP oil spill, plastic trash, acid rain, these are all examples of pollution that might cause extinction of animals. Overharvesting, so there are certain exotic animals, the furs, the bones, that we hunt these animals and we illegally kill them. Poaching is another good example. And then non-native animals and plants. Plants and animals find themselves in countries where they don't naturally live, and this can upset the balance that should exist in an ecosystem. Remember, ecosystems are in this delicate balance, and they're connected. As you saw, food webs are connections, and so if this balance starts to get unbalanced, we can get huge troubles when it comes to the numbers of organisms. Chemicals and the spraying of chemicals are also threats to extinction of species, and so we're spraying more and more pesticides, and they can come in the form of insecticides or herbicides or even fungicides, which kill fungi. Herbicides kill plants, insecticides, of course, kill insects. An alternative to this would be to use something called the biological control. Biological controls are living things that will reduce the number of a certain species. A praying mantis, for example, will eat grasshoppers. So if you have lots of grasshoppers, you maybe introduce a praying mantis, which would keep the population down. Be careful though. Whatever you introduce as a biological control must be native to that area, which means it's lived there before. Because if it doesn't, it will grow out of control. Here are examples of insecticides, Raid. Here are examples of herbicides, Roundup. So we talked about biological controls, but eating organic foods is also something we can do as humans to try and minimize our impact on the extinction of species. Organic foods are supposed to have standards whereby we're not using pesticides or any kind of unnatural thing. One thing that we've learned about the use of chemicals and pesticides and its impact on a food web is it will grow in concentration when we first spray it. So DDT, which was used to keep mosquito population down, hoping that it doesn't spread malaria, we found out that it amplified. So we spray the plants to get rid of the malaria, but then the fish come and they eat the bugs on the plants that have the chemical on them. And they don't eat just one, but they eat several. And that ups the concentration of DDT. And now it's higher, it's magnified. And then the bigger fish eat several of these little fish. And that ups the concentration more. And then some tertiary consumer might eat several big fish. And that even ups the concentration more. And now the concentration is really high and dangerous to all living things. So one bad thing about using pesticides is it usually amplifies or it magnifies or it accumulates in an ecosystem, getting higher and higher in concentration. Another thing that we can do to help reduce or minimize extinction of species is the 3Rs, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reuse things, so old clothes, or if you have plastic things, maybe you can make them into gifts and you give that away as a gift. Recycle, obviously you bring your recyclable products down. And reduce the amount that we buy, reduce the amount that we, instead of, for example, driving every day, we could reduce that by biking sometimes instead. Let's look at this video clip to end this topic.
Cool. Whoa. Hey, get down from there. Dear Tim and Moby, how come there aren't dinosaurs anymore? From Petra. About 65 million years ago, all of the dinosaurs on Earth went extinct. Extinction happens when an entire species of animal dies out. A species is any group of organisms that shares enough common traits to breed together. Well, like you couldn't breed a cat and a dog. They're members of different species. Anyway, there are millions of different species living on Earth today. When people think about extinct animals, dinosaurs come to mind, the saber-toothed tiger, maybe the dodo bird. But extinction is a much bigger deal than a loss of a few really cool-looking creatures. More than 99% of all the species that ever lived on Earth are now gone, forever. That's over 1 billion extinct species. I know. Extinction can happen in several ways. Mass extinction occurs when a large percentage of all the species on Earth becomes extinct in a relatively short period of time. Scientists believe that mass extinctions happen because of sudden environmental factors like major changes in climate. The loss of most of the dinosaurs was actually part of a mass extinction. It was likely the result of an environmental disaster caused at least partly by a meteor hitting the Earth 65 million years ago. Somewhere around half of all species on Earth died off when the dinosaurs did. Species can also go extinct from normal evolutionary pressure. Evolution is the process by which species change over many generations. Yeah, it's called the theory of evolution, but in science, a theory is more than just a guess. It's a well-established model that's supported by repeated experimentation and hard evidence. So, according to the theory of evolution, all living things are constantly competing for resources like food, water, and space. When a type of organism loses out on these life essentials, its species eventually goes extinct. For most of Earth's history, somewhere between 10 and 100 species have gone extinct every year. These days, that number has gone way up. Some biologists estimate that as many as 11 species on Earth go extinct every hour. I don't mean to freak you out, but it is a big problem. Human activities like industry, farming, forestry, and commercial fishing put a lot of pressure on the environment. In the 1970s, the use of the pesticide DDT nearly drove the bald eagle to extinction in North America. And when a species dies out, it can affect the entire ecosystem. Well, think about food chains. If a plant species dies off, all the animals that eat it will have to scramble for different food, and some of them will die off, and then the animals that eat those smaller animals will be affected too. It's important for us to remember that we share this planet. Humans depend on other life forms for all kinds of things like food, clothing, medicine, and shelter, to name a few. If we put too much pressure on the environment, we might drive the organisms we depend on to extinction. And that would be bad. Can we get off this thing now, please?